This was a 4-month cruise in the North Atlantic. We left Long Island in mid-June with 4 on board and made a 2-week crossing of the Atlantic to the Azores, where we cruised for 2 weeks and changed crew. With a new crew on board, we left for a direct shot to Greenland, but a medical emergency after about a week caused us to divert to St. John's, Newfoundland. In St. John's, we enjoyed some of the summer festivities and got a new crew. And after cruising the coast a little, we left for a direct shot to Gotthard, the capital of Greenland, up the Davis Strait. At Gotthard, we ventured up the fjord for 50 miles, cruised along the coast of Greenland to Sisimiut, above the Arctic Circle, and then returned to the midpoint of Labrador, where heavy weather forced us away from our intended landing. We sailed along the coast to the southeast to Battle Harbour, a famous old fishing port, and then returned to St. John's, Newfoundland, where we got a new crew again. And from there, we sailed to the Maritimes, Cape Breton Island and Nova Scotia. Hurricane Kyle forced us to leave rather hurriedly, and we headed for Maine, where we cruised for 10 days, and then headed back via the Cape Cod Canal to Long Island, where we returned in mid-October with 8,000 miles under the keel. Bob there on the left helping the stuff down. There's Colin. John Cunan's going to put the tent up. It's his tent. And we're getting squared away for our Bon Voyage party. Hello, Gabby. It's the Bentley's 80th birthday. There we go, 80.
Eric just got off, he's going to look for a power cord. I'm going to take you around and show you the vessel. Just going to walk down the side here, going down the starboard side. And we're going to show you the inside of this vessel. This is the cruise, this is the quarters that they live in. It's rather cramped considering all the time that they spend going out to sea. Give you this looking aft, starboard side. Going to bring you into the aft section of the vessel. Probably the captain's quarters. Oh, it's a little tight, as you could tell.
We are heading down the Patchogue River, aiming for Fire Island Inlet, about 25 miles to the west. Through the inlet, we sailed along the south coast of Long Island, where in fact we experienced some very heavy weather due to a squall line that was coming through that night. We moored at Block Island and left the next day for the 15-day passage to the Azores. Here you see Wayne and Jim enjoying their first happy hour at sea.
Eastbound, 85 degrees, that we should be coming up on bridges.
Taking the noon sight. Neophyte navigators. Okay. Well, write it down.
That's neophytes.
7159, yeah. Okay, you have a go, Jim. There's our record keeper. Give me a smile, Louise. The weather was generally pretty good for the trip across. We did reef once or twice, and Unfortunately, we've got a tear in the jib, and there you can see it tied to the lifeline on the port side, and we set the Yankee jib, which is a smaller jib. We got it repaired in the Azores.
I've only seen one, unless that's one.
No, I think there were two.
Here you go. Oh, I want to say finback, but that's just... I think you better adjust that length.
This is arriving at Flores, the most westerly of the Azores, and unfortunately, because of the harsh life at sea for the electronics, our video camera died, and we'll show a few stills. This is Laches, our first port, a very pretty place. This is a sign that says we're as far west as you can get in Europe, and this is a test your brake sign for the road at the end of the dock. Another shot of Laches there. The crew enjoy pizza and beer. And this is typical Portuguese architecture there. It's a very, very scenic island. It's highly volcanic. These valleys and hills are caused by volcanic activity that occurred many hundreds of years ago. There are lakes and springs and waterfalls like that. It really is pretty. The hydrangeas are used to divide the fields, actually. And here's one of the many lakes in Flores. From there we sailed to Fayal. That's called the White Castle, and this is Horta, the capital of Fayal, and there's the inter-island ferry. Louise is enjoying meat that's cooked on a hot plate, and there's Jim and Teresa who joined us there cooking a meal. And this shows the dock where visiting boats leave their sign on the ground or on a wall. There are hundreds of them. From there we sailed through St. George and Graciosa to Terceira, where Alicia and Bill signed up for the leg to Greenland. Alicia is going to take down the Portuguese flag. We've been here for a couple of weeks. We're leaving for Greenland. So this is sort of symbolic. Becalmed at about 40.5 north, same longitude, latitude as Long Island, but well to the east, on our way to Greenland. And we've had this now for a day since we left. We had a light wind when we left, and then nothing. There's Bill at the Rattlin. This is the North Atlantic, about 45 north, 40 west, and we're slowly beating our way to St. John's to drop Alicia off. It's been a very slow beat, dead headwind, days on end. Right now it's a bit strong for the jib, so we just have the staysail.
Banks, and we got a school of dolphins on our starboard side, and there's some real young ones, real small, maybe a dozen right there. I just got him. I've been sitting right there waiting for him.
Here's the Grand Bank. We've got about 90 fathoms under us. We're about, I think, 150 miles from St. John's. Victor's steering the boat. Good old Victor. Victor's the well-travelled wind vane that steered the boat for hundreds of thousands of miles.
Fiona, this is St. John's traffic. Roger, go ahead.
We're now a beam of Fort Amherst, over.
St. John's traffic. Roger, and which dock? Over.
When I was here last time, we tied up at the floating dock just near the Canada building, over.
up here, Queen 4, by the park, over.
Exactly, affirmative, over.
You may call now when you're secure, over.
Fiona standing by. There's Signal Hill at the entrance to St John's Harbour. That's where the first radio transmission was received across the Atlantic by Marconi. Started off the whole radio revolution. That's Fort Amherst on the left side, the port side, going into the port of St John's, which is dead ahead. This is the Crow's Nest Club in St George, which I've been to before. And here's Ian, who was very nice and bought me a Heineken. And he's going to get me a crew.
I'm going to do my best.
Possibly.
Anyway.
And you're right underneath that big moose or whatever it is. This is the annual regatta. The whole town shuts down for this. They enjoy the racing with the skiffs. There we go. With all our favourite teams that they root for. This one's a ladies' race. And there are concessions that they enjoy, cotton candy, ice cream, and rides. Here's a kid going to burst a balloon. Children have a great time, of course.
Thank you.
And there's an adult section where you can buy beer.
Oh, you got one.
Nothing stronger than that. And of course, being Newfoundland, they learn to fish at an early age. And I just wanted to put a shot of how we got our new crew, a young lady called Bianca, who signed up yesterday. Hard to see this. Besides this sign, we got a lot of interesting crewing because of an article that appeared in the local paper, the Telegram. But there it is. It's a bit soggy. We'll take it down. Here comes the crew. That's Ray back there and Bianca just joining us.
You got it? Okay.
All stocked up now?
Yeah, oh man. Yeah.
So we're going to shove off in a few minutes. I think these are tuna eating. There they go. Did we catch that one?
Those aren't dolphins?
No, they're not dolphins. Dolphins have a different shaped fin. It's tied up at St Anthony's. We're trying to arrange a ride up to the Viking site. Lanso Meadow is where the Vikings landed about 1000 AD and stayed for a couple of years, but then they left because of fighting with the Indians. This is a model of the site. Showing the huts there at the top, and the small boats they made, and the creek. This is the actual site. There's no lee for north or west winds, so they must have dragged their longships onto the shore. There's the reproduction of the huts. We're going to enter the sod house based on the excavations at this site.
Yeah, but there was the one woman who scared away the Skraelings by
Well, that's
slapping herself with a sword.
The smoke escaped from the building through a hole in the roof here. They have a little exhibit here of old techniques. Here's some wood being shaped as knees and ribs for wooden boats, and then this is planking that they've made. This is what the site looked like before they started excavations, which should have given us some idea of how hard it would be to find Norse sites in Greenland as well. This is the crew, Ray and Bianca, by the bear that they shot here in the main street of St Anthony's, quite a few years ago now. But, okay Bianca, do your stuff. How tall would you say that thing was?
Oh, let's see, I'm
13 feet, maybe 12.
Yeah.
So
It's a few inches above the ground, but it's at least 4 feet above you,
10, 12
9,
foot.
10
and
feet.
you're 5 foot something, so it's probably 10 feet.
7
Yeah.
meters, check.
We are running in the Davis Strait here. A really nice sunny day. We've not seen any icebergs yet. And Bianca and Ray are sunning themselves in the cockpit. And Victor is steering the boat downwind here. The next day, the wind swung from behind us to ahead of us. And here we are. Close haul beating actually towards Gotthard. Wind about 15 to 20. The seas have not built up yet. It's raining, of course. Getting fairly cold. But we get there in the end. We're about 57 north here. These are called the Cook-Own Islands on the approach to Gotthard at 64 north. And we've got Sleet. There's the lighthouse that was our identification for coming in. So we're right on the money. The inner harbour at Gotthard is full of fishing boats and small coastal freighters. We were tied up 6 boats out, so it's quite a job to climb from one boat to the other and get ashore. Gotthard is quite a civilised place with a bank, a hotel, and a very nice seamen's hostel that serve meals and provide showers for visiting crew like ourselves. It really was very civilised. We had some good meals, and we even played Danish pool, which is played with balls and skittles.
We should record our time and see who can do it the fastest by the end of the weekend.
The problem is when the tide goes down, I don't know how you get off this boat.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Is there a ladder around?
There's a ladder here, but you can't reach it.
Wow.
Sailing up the Gotthard Fjord, we're going to look for a couple of Norse sites. This was the centre of the so-called Western settlement. This wonderful mountain can be seen from Gotthard to the west. There are over 90 farms and churches found in this area that belong to the Norse between 1000 AD and 1400. We're heading for Quornock, a Norse settlement just round this cape there. And the glaciers at the head of these fjords, it's a sort of a Y-shaped split here. And this one's carving off quite a lot of growlers. We've arrived in Quornock. To our surprise, although we're expecting to find Viking ruins, there's also a small village here. So now there are people living here. They mostly look like Inuits. But now we have to find the Viking ruins. And nobody knew where they were when we asked. So we'll look around. Here's Bianca, who generally manages to leave an item of clothing at every place we visit.
Twice.
Well, nobody seems to be aware of the Norse ruins here. They're all weekend places that we found here. But there is a stone path up to this church. This looks very old. You can see it there. Leads up to the modern church. So maybe they put the church where the Norse built something. Because who would go to the trouble of building this pathway otherwise? There it is. This is the lee side of the island today. The wind is northerly, which of course is why we're thinking of staying another day. We can't get further north with that wind. And it's very quiet here on the lee side. We'll go and look inside the church. This reminds me a lot of the church in South Georgia.
Reverend Ray.
With all the trimmings and everything.
You can see a giant heater here, obviously rather cold. And there's an Inuit carving of some kind. And a unimac. I'm learning the words.
Ooh, that's a nice heavy cup.
Here's another raised footpath that leads up the hill. I don't know who built these, but they were probably very useful in winter. Get you a couple of inches or something like that off the snow. The bird probably passed us a few minutes ago. But as we get up there, we're going to have to be careful. Still pushing up the fjord here. My anchors up there on the bow, spotting. We were heading for a north site called Anavik, where there's still some standing walls, we believed, but the wind picked up to over 30 and there was no lee, so we had to give up. There's the glacier that's feeding bergibits and growlers down the fjord. And we turned round and ran back for Quornock. Yeah. We could have got some ice for cocktails there, but this growler here had a nice tunnel through it. And there's certainly some pretty large lumps of rock around here. Running west with the sun setting and low on the horizon, the glare made it very dangerous because of the floating ice. And if you look carefully, you'll see some rocks ahead in the glare of the sun that we had to avoid. The next day, we powered down another arm of the fjord, past Gotthard and into the Davis Strait to head north across the Arctic Circle to Sisimiut, about a day and a half away. Good morning. We're going around the island there, Ray will show you.
Get us one here. We're coming down the straits here, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we're going down the straits there.
There's a scattered rock in here, so we'll bypass that one and come on down. We'll come down here, down to past Ceylon or Stadalon.
Yeah.
Here.
And then we're gonna pop into Gotthard, which is there.
Yeah.
Refuel and try and get to Sisimiut.
Yeah, so we're gonna be all right.
And I wanted to make a remark about Eric the Red, who was always given a bum rap by historians for calling this place Greenland, even though it's full of ice. But in fact, you can see, although we've got ice around on the straits here, the shoreline is kind of green. It's sort of army green, olive green. And when you find a place on land that's not so steep, and it's a little meadow or valley, it's quite lush, actually.
Oh, yeah, they were, weren't they? Yeah.
And this is called the West Settlement, when the Norse were here. And there are something like 90 farms and churches. Of course, the churches are also farms, scattered throughout the fjords in this region there. And although we tried to find some ruins and didn't succeed, I guess after 1,000 years there's not much left. But it didn't do badly, really. I mean, it's a tough climate, but it's probably not too different than Norway, where they came from. We have to be careful. Right now, George is running the boat. We have to be careful of these growlers. George is our electronic autopilot, named after all autopilots in the RAF, which were always called George. I can edit that. We're approaching Sisimiut, or Holsteinberg as it was called. And there, at the harbour entrance channel, there's a cruise ship. So the place is going to be full of tourists. This is about the furthest south that they use huskies. And this is a sled for the huskies, and on top of it is a snow blind that the Eskimos at least used to push along and hide behind while they stalked a seal. And the thing behind it is a rest for a rifle, as you can see there. turf house, peat house, sod house, whatever you want to call it. You can see how thick the walls are by the recess for this window. I don't know. Don't think I'd like to live in it. Must have been a real haven for insects and small animals. This is the sleeping quarters. I guess they all slept together. They've all got to be very friendly, I suppose. And a few, I would say, fairly late era Eskimo clothes. This is an Inuit Unimac, and because it's elevated we can look inside and see how they made it. You can see that the skins are stretched by those leather thongs to a side piece that runs down the full length of the boat. A strake, is it? And the wooden pieces themselves are bound with leather there. And all this is driftwood. There's no natural wood in Greenland. They always find it on the beach, well, on the shore. Not many beaches. We're at the old church in the old part of Sisimiut, and the view over the harbour here is really spectacular. If you've got very sharp eyes, you can see Fiona's mast down there. We were told we were only the second yacht ever to visit this port. But it's quite a nice day. Fairly windless, so it's not cold. But here we're at a husky farm, and here's some sleds. And Bianca's getting the dogs all excited here. And there are a few more up on the hill. I think we're going to have a little problem in the morning when we leave. We're going to have to slip out of these, away from these two boats outboard of us on Fiona. You can see we crowded in here, hemmed in is the word. And just noticed here that one of the boats has a harpoon gun on the bow. Because most of the sailors you see here are Inuit, and they're allowed to take a few whales a year because of the tradition of killing whales. I thought they had to use canoes or longboats or something, but I guess they use more modern methods. On the way to Labrador, the block on the outhaul of the staysail burst, and Ray and I rigged a new one. Fairly cold job. I might mention too that both heading north and also heading south, we saw no icebergs whatsoever in the Davis Strait or the Labrador Sea. When we got to Labrador, the wind was very strong on the nose, and our first destination, Maine, proved to be impossible to get to with the navigational conditions and the wind, and we finally did just wind up at the south end of Labrador at Mary Harbour, and then later Battle Harbour. It was about a week to get from Sisimiut to Mary Harbour. In the Labrador Sea, we encountered fairly heavy conditions, and Victor steered the boat, much to our relief, with a reef main and staysail set. This is Mary's Harbour, Labrador, about 8 miles from Battle Harbour. We came here to get fuel because it's on the mainland. You can't really get fuel at Battle Harbour, so we'll go to Battle Harbour this afternoon. Nice little spot. The boat is tied up over there. Can't see it. And you can see some of the village here. And on my left here, that's the school. I was here in '94 when communication was entirely by sea. Since then they've driven a road through, which must make quite a difference to living here. I don't know what they catch here anymore that they're shipping out. I think shrimp is what they go for now. The cod, of course, has died. And the school just opened the doors and those parents, presumably, disappeared inside. This is Whitewater Falls on the St. Mary's River, southern Labrador. And apparently this is a famous salmon fishing area. But there's a sign there nailed to a tree that you're only allowed to use flies, no other bait. That pool there looks like the salmon should be waiting to jump up this fall here, to spawn further up. Very, very nice country. You can see the trees are fairly small. We're below the tree line, but not by a lot. The fishing boats here have mostly been destroyed really by the drop-off in the cod industry. Fishing in general is down. They're all lying idle. Sometimes they go out looking for shrimp, I believe. But there's not much going on in St. Mary's Harbour. Here's Fiona, ready to go to Battle Harbour. Famous Battle Harbour. And we've got to find ourselves somewhere to tie up. So we'll go ashore, have a look at the famous old buildings. I think those with the red roofs are the actual old warehouses, you know, so we can probably tie up there. We're in the general store here and of Battle Harbour, the restored trading post, and they're just lighting the fire. Nice old place. I was telling Mike that I was here in '94 when you were building all this.
Okay, were you?
Yeah.
So this is your first time back since then?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is one of the old warehouses, and you can see it was clearly built by shipwrights. They've got knees to hold up the floor beams of the story above, and this was the way they knew how to build ships, so they built houses the same way. It looks like the stock room. Old receipts on the desk here. Bins full of screws, nails, you name it. That's the ferry, waiting to go back to Mary's Harbour. And then beyond, you can just see Fiona.
Size of the cod compared to the young fella at one time.
Yeah.
Gee.
Yeah.
Now you don't get them no bigger than a friggin' tinker.
But what are we going to have for supper tonight? What are we going to have? You've got to tell the viewers.
Oh yeah.
Fresh cod.
Whatever.
Fresh cod.
Eh?
We're having fresh cod.
Yeah, it is going to be fresh cod. Okay. Oh yeah. I mean, whatever. As long as it's a fish meal, that's all I'm interested in. Jeez, I'm looking forward to fish. I was disappointed yesterday.
Yeah.
Come to Labrador, and especially in Mary's Harbour.
No fish.
And no fish. Oh, gee, even if it was on the menu, but anyway. She should have said, well, it was the bestseller, you know, and that it was all used up or whatever. But no, we didn't have it just outright. Didn't sound right. Nah.
We're going through the Battle Harbor Tickle. It's been very small. See what we're up against. It's definitely where we don't want to be. That's where we want to be. And that's where we don't want to be. Hear those waters.
Oh, geez, right.
Uh-oh, we just touched bottom.
All right, well, that didn't sound good. Ooh, that does not look like fun. We're headed.
On our right is the Bell Island Strait. An iceberg in sight. Nice wind. And behind us, that's Bell Island. So we hope to be back in Newfoundland in a few hours. And then it'll be next stop St. John's. I think we'll anchor tonight, because there's a nasty low coming through, and that's gone. We're off to St. John's. Looking at this tranquil scene as we're anchored in St. Lunaire Bay, Newfoundland. It might be hard to realise that a few hours ago we followed a fisherman here because we dragged from our early anchorage that we had found last night, and the boat was bumping on the rocks on the shore, and we managed to get the anchor up and sail here, followed him in about 25 to 30 knots of wind through that rather complicated channel of highlands there. And Bianca's decided to go fishing. She's going to see what she can catch with that lure. First time this rod's been used in years. Oh yeah. There they are, yeah. Yeah, got a few dolphins around if we can only get them to perform. Just running with the main and staysail. There's one. It's the kind of weather Fiona likes. Just steams along with him in 7 knots. Ah, there he is. We've seen the whale. There he goes.
There he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at there goes his tail.
Yeah, there goes his tail. Wow, got it too. Maybe it's Air Force Day because they've got the Canadian Air Force flag up there. St. John's, and we came back on our way from Greenland back to the States, and all the TV showed up here. But they must have heard we were arriving. Actually, it's an election, and the guy who wants to be Prime Minister of Canada is going to come and make a speech. What's his name, Jim? Who's this guy?
Dion. I got blank. Stefan Dion. He's the Liberal candidate for Prime Minister of Canada. He's the head of the Liberal Party, and the election is about a week old now. So all the leaders are making their routes around the country.
And when is the actual election day?
October the 14th? Yeah, October the 14th.
Here's Elizabeth joining the boat. And Vianca there.
Are you Elizabeth?
Saying goodbye. They heard you two were coming, so they laid on national television.
A little welcoming committee.
This is a Ferryland on the Avalon Peninsula, south end, and it used to be a very prosperous English settlement. Started in the 17th century, and they've been doing a great deal of digging, and we're going to go and visit the site. Here's the boat at Ferryland. It was called Avalon. We've got a very nice church here, and we're going to go and see some of the archaeological work. We just toured the museum, which is interesting, and we're waiting for a wind shift. We're trying to get to Louisburg, but the wind is southwest, 20 knots, which is no good.
Right under the sand.
Right.
Well, yeah,
Right under the surface.
Yes. You just hauled the stem up off.
This is Elizabeth, who signed on in
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
St. John's, and here's Brian.
He literally just hauled that up.
Also signed on in St. John's.
Just in front of you, this is another structure that was mentioned in one of the letters that Captain Wynne wrote to Lord Baltimore. And he talked about the first house that him and his tradespeople built when they came over. And we do know that the house that he built was a wooden structure that was a story and a half, and it measured 44 feet by 15 feet. So that building is directly in front of my hand. Do you see that back stone wall? And then you see the pressure treated board on the both left and right hand side. Well, that is the building. And the back section of the house, where you see the cobblestone floor, it's behind the fireplace, and you see that stone wall, that's the cellar for that house. So it's where they would store like food and other items. And then this large stack of stone here is the fireplace. Do you see to the left of it, that iron hoop? That's original, and that's the frame for the oven door. So they had an oven in this house. And then you'll see in front of the fireplace, there's more beach rock that's just coming toward us. There's more of it under us. Now this large rectangle opening here, that is the privy. That is the toilet. Now just look to the back of the privy. You see that rectangle opening? Remember the drains that I pointed out on the other side? Well, that's very likely where they lived. Underground and enter the privy. And how this privy would work, it's quite neat. It was an automatic flushable toilet twice a day with the rising and lowering of the tide. In front of the privy, when it was excavated, you could clearly see two large rectangle openings. Now you no longer can see them because soil's just naturally filled back in. But what would happen is when the tide would rise, it would fill up that privy with water. When the tide would go low, it would flush the privy out to sea. So our big claim to fame here is that we've got one of the very first flushable toilets in North America.
Brian's aunt brought down a whole pile of crab legs, so we've cooked those up, and we're going to sit on the dock here.
Elizabeth had a good idea.
Eat the legs. There's the boat. And toss the bits and pieces in the harbour. All right, show me how you eat one.
Well,
Elizabeth.
I think you have to cut the shell a little bit. I think you break. I'm from Georgia, I don't know, but I think you break this loose. And she said she just uses the scissors. I don't know if you break apart the joints to get to it or not, but let's see. Yeah, you must break them. And then...
Those scissors never going to be the same again.
They're shears. So I think that's what we'll do.
There you go.
I'm glad we got our forks.
We're on our way to Cape Breton Island, to Louisburg. And Newfoundland lies 30 miles behind us. But it's a very clear night. There may be a green flash. But unfortunately, we didn't see one. We're at the old French fort of Louisburg, which was ultimately destroyed by the English, or the British, perhaps they were then. It was after 1707. And there's Brian waiting to go in. Give me a big wave, Brian, just to add animation to the video. In the 1960s, coal mining in Cape Breton fell to pieces, and the unemployed miners were retrained to build this fort using plans that were found in Paris and artifacts that archaeologists had dug up, and now it's a tourist attraction. I think we're going to get the firing of the cannon here.
Muskets.
Oh, muskets. They don't fire the cannon as well?
Eventually.
In the distance there is Lunenburg, who spent the night anchored here. This is the marina at Lunenburg here. We're actually going to clear out tonight. There's a south wind forecast. And I don't like that. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. And here's a lobster party on the dock. Show me the lobster, give it a big wave.
I just learned you.
A few shots of Bar Harbour here. Tropical storm Kyle went through last night. It's not a big deal, actually. It veered more over towards Nova Scotia, which we left a few days ago. Good job we did. But the harbour's coming back into action. Quite a few boats moved into safer waters. The forecast was much worse than we actually experienced. Sailing in Toothaker Bay, near Swan Island, heading for Stonington. And here's a schooner. This is Butter Island, and we're anchored in 25 feet there. I'm going to go ashore and sit on Mr. Cabot's bench. So this is the hill on Butter Island with a tremendous view of Penobscot Bay to the west there. That's Penobscot Bay. In the very far distance is Rockland. A better shot of Fiona down here. There, anchored at Butter Island. This is Marshall Point near Port Clyde. Famous lighthouse. The public landing at Booth Bay. Here comes a schooner.
Okay, we're coming out of Booth Bay Tuesday, October 7th. Coming into Townsend Gut on a beautiful fall morning. Okay, we're just about ready for us. Okay, here we go.
This is a typical lobstering scene in Casco Bay. The lobster boats and all the lobster pot floats around. Big hazard to navigation. Walking through Jewel Island here. On the way to the towers, the World War II lookout towers. You can go all the way to the top. These towers were built in World War II to spot submarines on the coast and direct guns that were located nearby. So Elizabeth's going to climb up and get a view of Portland.
This must be where they had telescopes.
Yeah, they had,
Not guns.
they had theodolites there to get a range of bearing. There's the anchorage, but you can't see Fiona. That's actually Cliff Island there. Well, we're heading for Isle of Shoals on our first day out from Portland. You can see that the high pressure system that's moved into New England has left us with absolutely glass-like sea. Isle of Shoals on a fairly busy Saturday night, actually. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, close to a dozen boats here. Okay, this is tied up in Rockport, Mass. Very high range of water here. I think something like 12 or 13 feet. I'm drinking my rum and apple juice, and then Chuck, who's running the camera, is going to pan around and we'll show you the dock at nearly low water. Elizabeth disembarked here at Rockport. And climbing up these ladders is risky. You can see it's covered with seaweed. And I think we're liable to have a fatal accident climbing up if I drink too much happy hour rum. We're on our way to Provincetown, running into some whales here in Boston Bay, basically.
Yeah.
No, they're not humpbacks.
No, they're small.
There's Chuck, who joined the boat in, where did he join the boat? Portland. We're saying goodbye to Provincetown and heading for the Cape Cod Canal. It's only been a few hours. We arrived here about 6 o'clock last night and it's about nearly 11 now in the morning, so we only had half a day here. But nice little place with a nice supper. Here's Chuck sailing for the green gong there at the entrance to Provincetown. We're sailing down the Cape Cod Canal here, and that's the fixed bridge that leads to the Cape Cod region from the Boston area. And, we just got the last of the current with us. We're doing 7 knots. We're just coming up to the
That's the propeller that makes it go.
western end, and there's the Maritime Academy. And their ship, the training ship called Enterprise, sailing back from Block Island to Fire Island Inlet. The wind came up and we decided to do it during the day instead of overnight because we had a good wind, as you can see. Block Island Sound is a bit choppy. We spent the night anchored just east of that bridge, the Robert Moses Bridge, and now we're threading our way through all the shallow sandbanks, past the Fire Island Light, and here comes Fireplace. The Patchogue River. The trip is over. We sailed 8,085 nautical miles. Of course, we've got to drop the mast and haul the boat, start the winter maintenance program. Here comes the mast down.
Because this is it's a keel step, so
Yeah.
it's longer.
It's longer.
But not as heavy as this.
Yeah, this is a heavy mast.
Climb up to the pulpit and hand it to Pat, and then you take it over. It's reasonably heavy, it's not bad. I got it.
It's supposed to go just aft of this forward sort of trapezoidal large cabin window. I made an adjustment on the mark a couple of years ago because it always seemed like we were always in line with the front poppet.
Well, she's coming out. Just have to undo these stern lines, I think.
Oh, I can use that after. Kevin, tiny bit on that side.
she goes. The damage is not bad, it's just the bottom of the keel that's a bit beaten up.